Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday hosted by Cal State Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. We are here for Webinar Wednesday number 339 on March 19th, 2025, the last Webinar Wednesday of the winter. So there's enough W's for you. We've got a great guest today. We have Susie Pryor, the director of the Central SBDC region. We'll be talking soon. We're celebrating actually live today in Sacramento in a hotel lobby. So we can do this anywhere. We've been in this hotel before and actually have done this one last year, but we are celebrating Happy SBDC Day. So everybody is festive. Everybody is happy all across the country for all of America's SBDCs. And all of your support today. And today is March the 19th, 2025. So you're hearing a little theme about, maybe a little theme in the background also. But also, it's Happy SBDC Day, and we're celebrating with our communities and what we have able to accomplish through the SBDC program. So it's great being with you on SBDC Day. Today, we're going to talk about growing businesses and expansion and resiliency, because those are important topics. And really, one of the things we learned last week in our economic corner, and we are striking while the iron's hot this week with some great analysis last week from Dr. Evans. We're going to follow up a little bit on that today and to look at specifically where we can actually look and where we can actually grow our small businesses to make a meaningful impact. You know, we'll have some news and information and resources to help your business thrive. We'll talk a little bit about capital access and our capital quarter, a regular feature here that focuses on growing businesses. And that is what we are about. And we're really focusing on is growing those particular businesses, expanding businesses. We will get your answers to your questions today after the presentation. So don't hesitate to go into the Q&A and drop a particular question in there. Resources are going to be added today, that will be discussed by our producer, Maureen Busher-Dang. Thank you, Maureen, for the resources and all the work you do in helping bring us Webinar Wednesday here on SBDC Day. And it does say we have a poll, but I'm just going to give you a verbal poll. And your verbal poll today is, what is the annual wage for someone in California making the minimum wage? Okay, I think many of you know that it's $16.50 an hour. And if that person is paid for a full year, say 52 weeks, the correct answer is $34,340. Everybody gets the poll question right this week. So remember that figure, 34,340. We're going to be coming back to it in just a minute. Okay, on we go. And we're going to start this week with our economic corner. Yes, the economic corner is a regular focus. It's a regular feature and column that we have on Webinar Wednesday on a weekly basis. And really what we want to do is we want to really look and see how the general economic conditions affect your small business. As we've mentioned, that is one of the factors that you cannot control as a small business owner. But what you can do is you can recognize what is happening and stay up on the conditions that are going on to best run and make the decisions that are necessary for your business. So not being able to do that, economic conditions do affect your business, but actually the data that you receive can really help your business succeed. And it really kind of helps us too in driving some of the policy and some of the decisions to bring services to our communities. So after last week's webinar, on the next day, you noticed that one of the top right-hand corners is basically a column, an article about our Webinar Wednesday last week that focused on some of the economic news that happened. And some of the key economic news that I'm going to actually add and do a little further analysis on came from Dr. Mark Evans, our Webinar Wednesday resident economist. I almost called him a staff economist, and you know, he couldn't afford that, could I? So basically, some of the drilling down deep on some of the data that he received from the Employment Development Department for the first quarter, really coming out of the pandemic, as really we celebrate really this week, 5 years of really the beginning of the pandemic. So this would be about 6 months after that till the third quarter of 2023, which is the latest information and latest data that is available to be analyzed. So last week, Dr. Evans looked at the total pay of the community. What is the average pay of a citizen living in Kern County? And what is it in California? And obviously, it's substantially higher throughout California, as it is with all of our counties in the San Joaquin or Central Valley. But one thing you notice a big difference there with the red print is that how much or how close the small business pay is. 49,600 with only a very small difference of 2,400 in the annual pay, $200 a month. Now, you, by correctly getting, our poll question, realize that, well, what's the minimum an employee can earn? And that is going to be that 34,340. So really, you're seeing that a lot of small businesses are paid much closer to some of the middle and larger size businesses, and also government and other forms of entities. So small businesses are actually compensated much closer to the average than they are in the state of California, where you see there's only a 73% of that amount. In Kern County, it's 95. So to take that one step further, we see that change is also happening, and we're looking at basically 0 to 49 employees. Yes, we define a small business as having basically 1 to 500 employees, but this is really the sweet spot that we work with, 0 to 49. And what we're seeing is one thing on this particular graph that really jumps out is if you have 0 to 4 employees, you're just hovering a little bit over that minimum wage at 37,900. But look at that one employee increment difference, 5 to 9 employees, 48,000. That's nearly $1,000 more a month for your employee. And if your employee is making more money, it's because you as a business owner are making more money in most cases. And it really kind of shows you the value of being from not 0 to 4 employees, but making that incremental change by growth, what we're talking about today. So by being able to grow to 5 to 9 is a huge factor and a big difference in the amount that you are able to pay your employees. And there we see it manifest right there, and also some of the percentages away. So growing businesses to 5 or more employees is a huge difference. And this was from the economic data that was produced on Webinar Wednesday last week. Just explained a little bit deeper, and something that I'm fascinated in, and going to continue looking at this and trying to get more of our small businesses into that 5 to 9 category. So this is a little bit different. This shows you as far as employers that are 0 to 49. Now, our small business definition is much larger. So this is the smaller of small business. You will see as a percentage of total pay in Kern County, it's right at 40%, 39.9%. Whereas statewide, it's only 30%, which is a substantial difference. I'm guessing that it's going to be this way throughout the San Joaquin Valley and maybe even the Central Valley, maybe here in Sacramento, maybe not so much. But really what we're looking at is a substantial difference where 40% of our payroll comes from those that employ 0 to 49 people. Where statewide, it's only 30%. Another really telling statistic that we really are going to be pulling the layers back, so to speak. The thing that's statistically significant about this is the number of small business establishments. So we go from basically employee pay to the number of establishments. And again, remember this period, it's coming out of the pandemic. So it's from 2020 to 2023 at the end of the third quarter of each. So right around the end of September. And really the significance here is that you see that as far as small business growth, it was substantially higher, more than double than it was in California in Kern County. And again, going back to those 0 to 4 employees, 20% higher. which was only nearly 7% at the state. So that is really an increase of basically threefold, whereas Kern County on a percentage basis had 3 times higher growth than the statewide average for 0 to 4 employees. And so now I'm looking and I'm going back to where that last stat is, if we can get those from 0 to 4 employees to into that 5 to 9 area, substantially more pay and more profitability for those small businesses. So on this employee chart, it just kind of shows that things are pretty much relative here as far as the number goes. When you look at it from a different perspective and look at how Kern is to California. So those were particularly the areas that we wanted to look at there. So, it's interesting in meeting with some of our legislators today throughout the state of California over at the Capitol Annex. There's talk about, we talked as one of our talking points, at least I did, about the struggles that mom and pop businesses are facing. And some of that faces with some of the state law that was changed and impacted last year with the $20 minimum wage for fast food. It raised the price of labor for smaller businesses. So that was something that we kind of discussed a little bit, and there hopefully is some legislation and some ways that are coming down the way to actually assist that. Our capital quarter function is actually, that we're looking at funding ways to grow our business. So, if we have our small business and we're looking for growth and we're looking for ways to fund those particular businesses, one way to do that is to actually do it through accessing capital. So one way that most small businesses don't think of very often is by acquisition. So let's say you're a small service company, and there's a lot of businesses that are selling. There's a lot of businesses, and there's even value in businesses that are going to be closing. We're looking at general economic conditions like we talked about, and there's a lot of hurt going on in small business. But oftentimes that's an opportunity for someone else, and that opportunity could be actually by acquisition. So you can grow your business by growing your customer base, growing a location, growing whatever, acquisition of employees, etc., by actually buying another small business. And you could help fund that through the seller, because oftentimes businesses are funded through owner financing, which is an important way to fund projects. So, another way that we look to see for funding options to grow small businesses are the SBA 504 program and other SBA lending. But the 504 program for major fixed asset projects, purchases of land and building and equipment, and you can get into it for just a small amount down, usually in that area of about 10%, 10 to 15%. And so it's a great way and a great funding option to grow your business. For smaller profits, we suggest accessing one of the many small business lenders that we work with. And these are typically called CDFIs, or Community Development Financial Institution, and they are nonprofit lenders who have like an easier way to actually get approval on your particular loan. Another way is to partner strategically with others. Strategic partnering is a great tool and is one that isn't accessed as often. And it's just looking at the strengths of your business and how it might provide mutually beneficial aspects to another business and reciprocate in that particular way. The one thing I really like to get across is there are dozens of ways to fund growth and to fund your business. Oftentimes we see people that have a one loan, one bank approach. I'm going to go to the bank, I'm going to get a loan, I'm going to grow my business. And where that does happen, oftentimes it does not. And really what we need to do is we need to be open for creative solutions, of which there are a lot of creative ways that people can fund businesses. So that is some ways, and along with our theme today of actually having growth and funding growth and looking to grow our small businesses. So we had talked a little bit about the last few weeks about disaster loans in Kern County. And right now there are 7 open disaster loan applications that you can actually apply to. There's 7 different disasters. One of them is located in Kern County, the Burrell Fire. Every one of these are only open for those businesses that have been injured or impacted financially by the disaster. Okay, an example of that might be your businesses in Kern County, and actually your biggest customer lost their business location in, say, Los Angeles. And along with that went a lot of sales to your particular business, a lot of them with the cash flow and a lot of the other aspects. The SBA is there to kind of help you with these economic injury disaster loans. So those particular programs work really well. As you see, there's 7 of them. We do have SBA officials in Kern County right now to assist you with that. Reach out to the SBDC or others in getting that. Does your business have issues with human resources? Well, you could from time to time, and it's good to know that there's a free human resource hotline available to employers. We've listed here the phone numbers for throughout our Central California region. So there's a number that you can call and partner with the actual California Employers Association. And these are the workforce development agencies throughout California, throughout the San Joaquin Valley, the Central Coast, and the Eastern Sierra, who have partnered with the California Employers Association to bring this service to you at no fee. Here at the SBDC, we have a variety of toolboxes. We have one toolbox there, but we're thinking about getting a larger one because of all these tools that we have. And oftentimes I will focus on a particular tool. Probably just touch on a few right now. You know, if you're looking to grow your business, a great tool is LivePlan. And LivePlan is an interactive platform for writing a business plan that is incredibly helpful and incredibly powerful, particularly if you're trying to write a business plan to manage the growth of your particular business. We have advisors that can work with you on LivePlan, and you know, they are basically standing by at this moment, ready to assist you. So that's our LivePlan. Also, a great tool that we have is the SBDC Net. And the SBDC Net is a national information clearinghouse. They're located in Texas. Only us SBDCs who are celebrating SBDC Day today can access that. But if you're a client of the SBDC, what we can do is we can get some great market information for you and some great research to really know a lot of the demographics of your particular business, your particular industry, and how your industry competes in that particular location where you're located. So SBDC Net is great information that we can actually access for you. Talk to your SBDC advisor, or you can always sign up and then actually get that information for you. Our community calendar, which of course is our resource of all good things happening. And this week we're focusing on a digital marketing program, Mastering Digital Marketing. It's a webinar series, a 2-part session that is being sponsored by the Central California SBDC of all people. And there is some registration information there. I'm sure you'll find it in the chat where you can click through the particular chat and grab that information and grab it and particularly go with that. Coming up on April the 9th and April the 16th. So if you're looking for digital marketing information, there it is. Hey, we'll be back next week. I know that's probably not a shock to a lot of you, but we'll be back for webinar number 340 on March the 26th. Our special guest is going to be Jim Damian. For those that know Jim, he's a serial entrepreneur who started a company called Stria, grew it to over 100 employees, sold it to Bitwise, and well, the rest we don't want to talk about. With Bitwise's failure and some of the fraudulent aspects of that entity. So Jim then left and went and became the Chief Economic Development Officer for the County of Kern, and we worked with him greatly on that particular project. And now Jim has an AI startup that he's going to talk about and a couple of other things that are going on. So yes, we do in Bakersfield have our own AI startup that is going on. Jim's going to share that information with that. And, you know, in his spare time, he is an advisory board member for the Central California SBDC region. So that's coming up next week. Contact us, you know, reach out. There's a lot of different ways. You do realize that the consultation, the advisors that we have are truly excellent advisors. It's available confidential, no cost, no obligation. They are truly experts that will walk you through and work on your business on a one-on-one business and help you to grow it. There's our website at CSUB SBDC. I think two of the greatest acronyms in the world combined into one single website.com. Sign up and join us at the SBDC. And that brings us to today's special guest. And our special guest today is Susie Pryor, and she is the director of the Central California Small Business Development Center Network, which includes the 6 regional centers in Central California that I've already mentioned to you. She is formerly a business professor who specialized in creating campus entrepreneurship programs, longtime champion of small business success. Like Jim Damien, she's a longtime and social entrepreneur. She's launched several different projects, successful businesses in retail, agriculture, and property development. And she's a member of that 2 a.m. club, something that I know, but I'm just passing through at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know. I'm going to look for some more information on this 2 a.m. club, which includes small business owners who are known to sleep with a calculator and wake up in the middle of the night to estimate payroll. There you go. Susie's passionate, approachable, grounded, believes in the power of small businesses to transform lives. Susie, it's great to have you on Webinar Wednesday. Welcome and take it away.
Kelly, it is a privilege to be here. Hello, everyone. Very excited to talk to you today. That was a wonderful setup by Kelly. So much of what he was talking about resonated with me. I am new to the Central Valley. I moved here in December, so I now say that I'm a Kansas Citian by birth and a Californian by choice. And there's a great deal of the Central Valley that reminds me very much of home, including the agricultural emphasis here. So really excited to talk about the topics at hand. And I am going to try to advance some slides. When Kelly and I talked about my working on this project, we talked about a couple of ideas, and he's already done a nice job of laying the groundwork for those. One of them is change, and change creates fear. We are going through change now. I'm here to tell you, change is a constant. You know that. I know that. And I have over 30 years of working in small business education and consulting. I see many, many points of change. So we're going through one now. This happens with every political cycle. So it's nothing new to any of us, but it does mean the rules of the game can change. And I want to talk a little bit about how we lean into that, how we think about resilience and adaptability and pivoting, how we look for opportunities for growth through change. And then not all of this is really about a moment in time. Some of what I want to talk about are growth strategies, just generally. I think one of the most powerful arguments that Kelly made was when he showed you the difference. When you go from that 0 to 4 to the 5 to 49 employees, that shift can mean dramatic change for you, for your employees, for the communities that you hold your business in. So I'm going to spend some time just talking about how do you grow a business. And I'm going to try to, I'm a little theoretical because I've been in higher ed for a long time, but I'm going to try to give you some sort of practical ideas. I thought you might find my story interesting. You all have stories. So I want to give a plug for my LinkedIn page. Please join me on LinkedIn. It's a great space for me to talk to small business owners like you. But today I shared a story on there, just a snippet of a small business in the San Joaquin SBDC, which is a neighboring SBDC program to ours. And I thought, watching that story of that gentleman, how much alike we are. So my first business was a British gift shop seated in Lawrence, Kansas. If you're a follower of basketball, college basketball, you'll know the Jayhawks there. And downtown Lawrence has a small business district. It's just about 3 or 4 blocks long, very vibrant, very successful. And I, over the years, have put several new businesses in that downtown district. And the first was Brits. And I like to talk about Brits because it started by my knocking on a door of this really sort of dark, tall, high-rise building in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, at the office of the SBA, and they immediately redirected me to the Small Business Development Center. So I'm a huge believer in the services that we offer. Brits turns 30 years old this year. made it through a pandemic and a lot of other economic stuff. And you too can do that. But we did it by really practicing a lot of the principles I want to talk to you about. Other businesses I've owned since that time, I had a series of retail stores. So Brits and Marche are now sort of next door neighbors in downtown Lawrence. Marche is a few years younger than Brits. I went on then to do a small baby store. This business was about 17 years old when I moved to Nebraska. One of my friends sadly died of cancer, one of my business partners, and the other was in her 70s and said, time to retire. So Blue Dandelion was a darling shop and a really important place for mothers and grandmothers and children to gather in our community. And so that's one of the things I'm probably going to end talking about today was the value that each of you brings to your communities when you start small businesses. So those were my first three businesses, all with SBDC assistance and advice and counseling that were incredibly meaningful and led me to go back to school, work on this doctorate in marketing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing in a bit. And then come back around to the SBDC as a working professional instead of as a client. So I love it. Did a series of dog businesses. I'm going to come back to these when I talk about some of these ideas about growth and some of the ways that I apply the principles that I'm going to hopefully share with you today. And so I did a series of these and I sort of played with my business model, starting with a really large 200 dog kennel, Main Street Pet Resort, and then going to a more boutique model with the Red Wolf Inn and then later Bark Place. And I changed these things as I was playing with my value proposition, why I was doing this kind of work and what I hope to offer my customers. And I was playing with the business model itself, how to make these businesses more successful financially. And I think both of those are very, very valid things. And I think you should be thinking about both of those things concurrently all the time. And finally, I moved to doing a lot of commercial property development. So this little Cupcakery you're looking at is a building I bought in a rural town in Iowa. It couldn't find a home, it couldn't find a buyer, and I've been able to help a lot of small businesses launch out of this tiny space, incubate a small pizzeria, for example, and then launch and grow that business. So there's lots of tools for growth, and however small you might be on this call, incubation is a nice way to start. So those are my sort of the businesses that I've worked with. I've had an ad agency, I've had some other things, but those are the nearest and dearest to my heart and the most likely when Kelly and I are talking at the end of this call, most likely to be the types of stories that I share with you. I'm always a little careful about sharing the stories of clients. I think everybody is because we protect privacy. So unless a client has told me, yes, share my story, if that helps someone else, I tend to try to stick pretty close to my own personal experiences so that I'm not stepping on somebody else's privacy. So my businesses probably look very familiar to many of you watching. And I think a lot of what I'm going to say today is probably going to be familiar, but I hope it stimulates some ideas. So I want to start with this idea about change. And I said it's the only constant. It's also simply inevitable. And so we may want to stick our heads in the sand. We may want to pretend that circumstances around us are not going to change. But the truth is change is growth. And I hope I can help you to embrace that and see that as an opportunity for growth. So there are ways in which your business is likely to change. Your business itself is going to change. Ideally, it's going to grow organically, and it's going to grow due to the strategic decisions that you make in terms of where you want to take your business. Your resources are going to change. There are going to be times in which you are resource poor, and there are going to be times when you are resource rich, and that's not a purely linear process, right? It can change with the economy. It can change when you take some gambles and risks. So we know that our resources will change. And I want to help you think about how to take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves, and how not to create opportunity costs for yourself. And that's a lot to try to do in about 20 minutes. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of tools, and then hopefully Kelly and his team and other SBD staff can help you as well. Other areas of change, markets, industries, regulatory environments change. We're seeing currently changes in the way that the federal government's approaching things like tariffs. That's going to have market impact on some of you, and very directly. there can be other rounds. Some of that's going to be very positive for you as we attempt to build new infrastructure and manufacturing and new opportunities for American businesses. But for others of you who have relied on overseas sales, this could be a time of fright. It can be scary. So I'm going to talk to you about sort of leaning into that just a little bit. But this is, obviously it happens all of the time, and it happens at the city and county and state and national levels. So change takes many forms. Anticipate it's going to occur, and think about some of the tools that can help you. And I'm going to start with the first tools that I have developed for my clients and my students over 30 years. And I have this thing I call the ABCs of change management. And for me, a business who successfully adapts, a business who develops the capacity for resiliency in tough times, is one that does each of these three things. And they all reside with you, the leader. So you don't get to shirk that. This is not something, unfortunately, we can't delegate leadership in our small business most of the time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these. One is attitudinal. And it's going to be, how do you develop an attitude that embraces change and is able to harness it for growth? And then the second two I tend to combine, and that's behavioral. So what is it that you do as an individual and with your business? And the other is cognitive. That's how you think. And I tend to find behavioral and cognitive activities are deeply embedded in one another. So I'm going to treat those together. So let's talk about attitude. I say it's the mindset behind change. I'm pretty change open. I change a lot of things in my personal life. I've experimented a lot with my businesses. And so I have an openness to change that is not necessarily your approach. So I'm going to give you just a few guideposts, because I can't say that I was always this way. I think when I was young, I was not a risk taker. And I stayed in my lane a lot, and my lane was not very wide. So I've had to develop this, and it starts to take on a life of its own if you can really begin to work on these things. So the first thing I say is you got to start with this idea that you believe change is possible for your business. We know change is going to happen external to you, but you've got to be able to start with that. I had a business partner once in the British shop, Brits. Love that business. It's a little baby business. We're nurturing it. And we had an opportunity to go on a reality show. And my business partner said to me, it would be pointless because they would advocate for change, and I'm not open to that. And I thought, bingo, that was a great insight. She is not. Change is just not in her wheelhouse, and she likes the security of the current business model. And that's not an indictment of my friend or of Brits. It's simply a different mindset. So for you guys, I'm going to advocate a little bit broader thinking about the possibilities that change brings to your business. The second thing I want you to really think about and try to internalize is shifting a couple perspectives. One is a shift from fear to curiosity. What do these changes, what opportunities might this change offer my organization? And I admit it's hard to let go of fear because there's something comforting about just sitting there and wallowing in it. But if you can shift to thinking about, okay, let's accept that these changes have occurred or are likely to occur. What can I do with that? Be curious. And related to that is from this scarcity mindset to opportunity. There is a tendency in times of change to want to hunker down and try to maintain what we have currently. And so sometimes it's frightening to think about this might be a time for growth. But if you can make those shifts, you're going to find that both you and your organization benefit. I know from a lot of client work and a lot of client research that resilient business owners embrace opportunity and uncertainty, embrace uncertainty as part of the journey. And so when I talk about resilience, I'm really talking about a very specific idea, and that is your capacity and your business's capacity to endure hardships without fully collapsing. That's resilience. It's endurance of hardships without the collapse of your business or your own mental state. So the last thing I want to say about attitude is that it is pervasive. It does influence your leadership style. it influences the decisions that you make, and it influences your team's morale. So you as the leader are signaling to your organization all of the time your belief systems, and it could be in very subtle ways. So you want to be on top of sort of this developing a capacity among the people who work for you for these same kinds of mindsets. And then I mentioned that I tend to combine cognition and behavior. So cognition, for the most part, deals with how you process information and make decisions based on it. I always say I like to be, I'm data informed. I'm a data informed decision maker. I like to know what I'm looking at before I make a lot of decisions. We do know that environments change very rapidly, and so we don't always have the luxury of a lot of time. But that's a cognitive activity, really trying to embrace use of data. And it's hard to talk businesses who are really, really stretched anyway to do research, but it's getting easier. So I encourage you to think about how you can infuse research into your decision making. Cognition means challenging outdated beliefs. So that's how we've always done it. Is challenging. In my office right now, we're looking at processes. We're looking at these sort of megalithic spreadsheets in which we track activities. And we're asking ourselves, were these built at a time when this particular process was necessary? Is it still necessary? Ask that in your own businesses. Staying open to feedback, learning, innovation of ideas. I love the term innovation. I know a lot of folks who don't. I just went to Silicon Valley last week. I found it very exciting to watch this little white Jaguar driving around by itself with no driver. I loved being on the Google campus. I have friends that's a turnoff. So you're going to have to decide what your capacity and range is for innovativeness, but you need an element of this. And then cognitive flexibility is really, these things, if you can lean into them, are going to help you become a creative problem solver. And it's going to open up opportunities for your business that you hadn't considered previously. So that's the cognitive activity. If you can get an attitude that's structurally strong, the cognitive stuff follows. And then finally, it's behavioral. I have worked with a lot of folks who never launched. And I've worked with students in the classroom who insist they want to start a small business, but they don't exhibit the behaviors. To genuinely be an entrepreneur or a small business owner is to actually take action. And so behaviorally, you may see the vision and it may be fairly far away, but the willingness to take consistent steps, even small steps, towards your goals is helpful. Building new routines that replace things that you think are antiquated are helpful. Trying new strategies, experimenting can be scary, and you're going to have to trust yourself, your staff, and your clients. But you can do these things. You may not want to do them on the first day in the office next week when you come in with your new attitude, but over time, and you're going to want to model adaptability for your team. And so you're going to try to prime the folks that work with you and your customers to be open to some new approaches. So I hope that's helpful. I mean, I honestly believe if you tackle just those three things, you will help yourself and your business to grow. I brought a couple of tools today that I thought might be helpful. I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes on each because I want to be able to have an opportunity to talk with Kelly at the end. But they're tools that I think you'll find structurally useful to your business as you think about change and growth. And so one is the BCG Matrix developed by Boston Consulting Group. And I want to share it just very quickly because one, my background's marketing, and these are predominant tools in marketing. But I want to say one thing you might want to do, and this may be hard for some folks, is to really focus on what your organization focuses on and where your successes lie. And I have found this from my own companies. BCG typically uses this tool for really large organizations with very complex business models. But even in my own businesses, I have found that this one little thing helped me a great deal. So you may have in your organization things you're working on that are very low growth, may have sort of high market share, and those types of things are going to be the kinds of cash cows that you invest in. Brits was like that for me. Brits was a foundational business, very mature business, very stable, but it was my cash cow. And I was able to take the money I made at Brits to develop and experiment with some of the other things that I did later on. Look for those cash cows. They may be businesses, entities you own, but they may be profit centers or lines within your company. And so there are also things that you have in your company that might be high growth, things that you want to invest in, and you're going to want to be thoughtful. We typically call those stars. Those are the things where you really see the future. So be looking at those. They often are a little bit riskier, but they often produce tremendous dividends for your organization. You may also have things that are in high growth areas, but you're just not getting a return. Typically, we kind of have a question mark there. That takes your judgment as the leader of your organization. Do you think this is an area for development or one where you're going to go back to the table and do additional research? And then finally, there are those things we call low share, low growth pets, and they're the ones I want to bring to your attention. Sometimes we hang on to a passion project, we hang on to a division of an organization or a profit line because we love it. That was me in the Sherlock Holmes chess set. I had to have that thing. It was really expensive and nobody bought it. So it could be a product line. I had this also in the dog business. We built out, we had boarding, doggy daycare and grooming. They all had different sort of underlying business models and cost structures. And then we added home care. We added home care because we wanted to be in that game and we wanted to compete with the new tools like Rover and wag.com that we thought were biting in to our market share. And we did grow revenue dramatically, but we lost money dramatically as well. So could have continued to do it just so we could say we're in the game. And so that every time I put out a marketing message, I could say, oh, by the way, we do home care. But we discovered that pet had to go. Maybe not a nice way to put that, but we weren't making money. We were losing money on that service. So these are just, they're going to look different for each of you, how you use these tools, but I bring them to your attention because they're a nice way to start if you begin to worry about the business model you're operating with. The other tool I wanted to talk about is the Ansoff Matrix. And this is a growth matrix. This is a growth strategy. And some of the things that I'm thinking about here are things that Kelly's already mentioned. He talked about acquisitions, which I think is great. And I was jealous because I wish I'd put a slide in here for this. But the Ansoff Matrix says, you got a business. You started this business for a reason. There's some value you wanted. With me, I had 3 European shops. I thought bringing those to my campus community was added value to my community. I still do. So I worked with that premise. With my dog businesses, I wanted to have low stress care for pets in my community, an alternative to scary inform or institutional sort of pet providers. So you have that. You have a value proposition as well. So now you're going to start with that and you're going to say, how do I build this business? And there's generally 4 ways to do it. You could take your existing product and you could help build it within your existing market, right? So you're going to continue trying to penetrate the market more deeply. And you may do things like my example here is Coca-Cola, focused only on Coca-Cola consumers, but they put a penguin on it or a Santa Claus. Right. So they try to build more purchases from that market. You see this at McDonald's when they sell you up to add the large fries, right? Another is to say, I'm going to stay with my existing market. I love it. I'm comfortable. I know their likes and dislikes, but I'm going to bring a new product in. And that's the example of Coke, Diet Coke, bringing in Coke Zero. Then there's the diversification. So new product altogether in a new market altogether. And that is perhaps the riskiest in some respects. You have to learn the likes and dislikes of a new customer base, but it offers tremendous opportunity. So these are ways to approach your growth strategy that is strategic. And so that's sort of the last thought that I want to talk with you about. I put some slides in here. I think you'll see some examples that I've given in here of just some of the creative ideas that folks have used that I have worked with. And because I really want to have a conversation with Kelly, I'm not going to walk through each of them, but there's some really fun ideas of how to modify and adapt your product lines that maybe suggest some things to you that I think will be fun for you to think about. And certainly in times of change, worth exploring. And I think that's sort of my big message. I want to end with this idea that you should stay very close to what you're passionate about. You don't want to desert that entirely. And you really need to think very long about how to translate that passion to both your people and your customers. So your customers, if you can get them committed to your vision, you're in it for the long run, right? You're going to be okay in a time of change. That's what I have today. I hope that that is useful to you. I'm handing it back over to your venerable leader.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Let me get in here. Yeah, great stuff. So thank you for that. Let's, stop this share for a moment and maybe hit some of the chat. If you have any questions, I'll have to go over. If you have any questions, we have time for questions. In the meantime, while you're formulating those questions and getting them ready for us, let's jump into the chat and see some of the resources that are in here. So today, we do see the Happy SBDC Day, and I know, Susie, you wanted to also extend a greeting to Mr. Rich Mostert, who is hosting a large delegation, a wonderful luncheon at an SBDC event in Fresno or Madera or Clovis. Which is it?
It's Fresno.
It is Fresno.
Yes, and we have staff down there.
So
we wanted very much to be there.
So congratulations, Rich, in advance. Going back also into the chat, we can also see that there are the resources for some of the SBA government funding programs. We see the information on the Central California Regional SBDC webinar series on digital marketing and mastering that digital marketing. Information on how to sign up at the SBDC, sbdc.com. Gets you started.
I love she put my LinkedIn in there. Thank you, Maureen.
LinkedIn. And so there's plenty of stuff there in resources. And also, if you are new to Webinar Wednesday, you will be receiving, if you sign up for the webinar, a recording and also a list of all these links in an email, probably around the weekend, because weekends don't slow us down. So be looking for that if you want more information or you want to go back and visit some of the stuff that we talked about today. Questions? I don't see any questions here. So do you have any answers?
I do have answers. I have comments. I have things I'd love to talk with you about.
Let's go.
Yeah. So you did make a really interesting point about acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
And I have bought businesses and I have sold businesses. What do you think are the tricks to that, to successfully buying somebody else's venture?
Oh, the trick is doing due diligence. It is due diligence, and it is a lot. And you got to be able to walk, There's a lot of information out there that you need to have in order to make a decision to buy a business that's profitable. And you're valuing that business on the basis that it is profitable. Now, on the same token, there is opportunities in, failed businesses. There are locations, there are fixtures and assets that are available. There's potentially a customer base that's there. So I think that's really underappreciated, a struggling or a failed business looking to maybe acquire some of the assets of it as well. So it just depends on your situation, but I really can't say enough about doing your due diligence. You have to have the tax returns. You have to, even if the owner is telling you that they are going to finance it for you. The biggest factor I see in working with businesses that are for sale is generally the owners think their business is worth more than it is. In almost all cases, it's not worth as much as they think it is, at least in the eyes of financial analysis, in appraisals, in lenders, and in SBDC directors. So really, it's doing that due diligence. It's getting the tax returns. It's not the financial statements. It's what they reported to the government. That is what you have to go off of, and then have the analysis to go through and look at that particular business and make a decision if that fits, either to expand your business or to actually go off an entire different direction or to start a business for that matter.
And friends, that is a masterclass. That is a masterclass in answering that question, because it is very tempting to buy someone else's business. It is tempting to fall in love with another business. I've done it. I fell in love with a business, bought it, didn't do anything he just said, and it did not go well. So I didn't insist. I did not do it.
Do your due diligence.
I absolutely agree. Now there is something else in chat, but I don't know if that's a question.
We'll check in a minute.
Okay. I related to that question. We have right now, for those of you who kind of watch what's going on with small business, what we're calling the silver tsunami. And that is that a lot of folks are aging out of their businesses. And we believe there's going to be a bunch of those in the market right now. So if you were giving advice to someone who's thinking about positioning their business to sell it, say in the next 3 to 5 years, advice for those folks?
Well, for me, it would be the opposite of the advice I just gave. If you're buying, if you're selling, it's almost opposite. It's number one, you want to have your financial information up. Oftentimes, we hear everything at the SBDC. It's confidential. You can tell us basically anything, and we've heard about everything that could possibly be happening in small businesses. Now, it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all to hear, well, my business is really cash-based, and it really, not all of that money ends up there. I had to take it to the bank, or it's just inconvenient, or whatever the excuse is, or whatever the reason is. But really, from that standpoint of doing the analysis on the value of that business, only very limited times have I seen a lender look at that and just say, well, gee, there's substantial amount of cash missing. I will look past that. So whatever ends up on your tax return is pretty much gold. It's golden. And, there's that old famous expression. So, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So, I think oftentimes, and this works in the accounting field also, is where you work with your accountant on driving your bottom line down and paying less tax. But what that's doing is making your business harder to finance and grow. And it's also making your business worth less when you sell it. Although there are add backs like for depreciation and things like that. So if it's asset driven and the reason why you're paying less tax, oftentimes those are added back. So those don't penalize you. But it's really just kind of having your financial shape, your values in place, and then go into it with an open mind to listen to people on value. And once you find out that your business isn't worth as much as it is, many people will think it is, and get many opinions, don't get my opinion and run with it, get 2 or 3 others, and really kind of formulate a basis. At our SBDC, oftentimes we will work with a business that is being sold where they have an internal buyer. And maybe I or another advisor will work with the seller, and one of our separate advisors will work with the buyer. And it's basically work with each other in order to try to get to the middle on that, but they're each represented by a different individual.
That is a great topic for a whole podcast, buying and selling.
Oh, no.
And I think, my observation running SBDCs and working in SBDCs is that sometimes folks don't realize that's the kind of work we do, that you could help someone through that process. It's not just startup or going to the bank and getting a loan, but it's these transitions. So yeah, very good. I'd come to you if I had a business to buy or sell.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I had one.
I would advise you.
I know you would, and you'd give me good advice.
The other thing is all the funding options we talked a little bit about. And it is frustrating at times, because I think a lot of people just hope that it is that one walk in, get a loan and done.
Yeah.
But you could start getting into all these alternatives that are out there, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work funding a business and finding funding for it. But there are so many different resources that are out there that people just do not realize that they can access. And one of our favorites for a while, and really where we really didn't get a lot of use out of, but when we had a case come in, was crowdfunding, for example.
Yes.
A big believer in crowdfunding and using that crowd, and had some good examples of some of our advisors that have done projects and have worked with others. And so really just looking at a lot of the different options out there. Sometimes it's lease options, and sometimes, it's just going to be your situation is different and unique, and there's not a cookie cutter way to do it. So it's just really look for the solutions for your individual business.
And I have to add pre-sales. I had a client who started an event center during the pandemic, a lot of challenges getting that thing banked, did $1 million in pre-sales.
Mhm.
So when he opened and cut ground and he was off and running,
Often,
and it was something to take to the bank, those contracts. So
and those
Ah, you get
pre-sales,
creative.
they're
We love
zealots
that.
already. They're zealots
Yeah.
already about your business.
Yes.
They're your best advisor or ambassador moving forward.
it's absolutely right.
Works that way in crowdfunding too.
Yeah. Love that.
Okay, well, we're winding down. We're about out of time.
That went so fast.
Well, that's the way it works on Webinar Wednesday.
I hope so.
We'll
That
hit
was
the
fun.
C and see that we have something else in chat you wanted to see.
Let's see. So
Well,
make sure
that's
there was
very
not,
kind of you. Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks a million.
was
Million
very
back
fun.
right at you and hopefully $1 million in sales. And that's going to wrap us up.
Happy
for
SBDC
webinar number
Day.
339. Happy SBDC Day. And thank you, Susie, for joining us. It was great to have you on today. And now it's on to lunch, and that's always a good thing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you,
So
Maureen.
for Maureen Busher-Dang, our producer, and Susie Pryor, I'm Kelly Bearden. We'll be back next week with Webinar Wednesday, number 340. Jim Damian, as I mentioned, is going to be here. It's going to be great. He won't be here with us in Sacramento, but he will be in Bakersfield. So everybody have a great week. Goodbye, everybody.